What's going on, guys? In this video, I am going to share how to write copy specifically for emails so you can start sending emails that actually convert sales. Okay, so if you don't know, my background is in copywriting. I started out as a freelance copywriter in 2013. I've worked with all kinds of businesses, from e-commerce products to agency services to weird, obscure technology and manufacturing businesses, and I've sold tens of millions of dollars through of products or services through copywriting alone. So most of the time it was through email marketing. That is where I have spent the most of my career as far as specializing in copywriting, and now I own an email marketing agency. So copywriting is very, very important to me. Not just because of obviously what it's done for me, but because of how crucial it is to the success of any business in regards to their marketing and sales. So copywriting is the foundation. Even if your business primarily does video, the foundation of good video marketing is the message that's in the video, right? You can have lots of cool visuals and everything, but if the message, and a lot of times, honestly, the visuals, they send a message, right? So the message is the most important thing. So you cannot get around, you will never have great emails if you don't have great copy. The best design in the world cannot make up for terrible copy. But I will say that terrible design can actually make great copy look bad. So I have a video on that. So if you're going to have designed emails, they got to look good, or just don't do it. Otherwise, focus on the copy. Of course, copy should just always be the focus. So in a previous video, which I recommend watching before this one, I actually provided some resources for creating a messaging strategy. So that was really more about understanding the principles behind having a messaging strategy. So what's going on with the psychology of the person who is consuming your content, and how can you craft your content in a way, and how can you plan and strategize content in a way that targets your ideal customers and convinces them to buy. And I shared some great resources there that I would say are crucial to writing great copy. But now I want to go a little bit more specific to copywriting itself, and actually learning more about copywriting. Because those again are more like big picture strategy, meaning that if you have to understand those things first to be able to actually use the copywriting formulas, if you follow a formula, and to actually, write great copy. If you don't understand the fundamentals and then you just use some AIDA formula or one of the other formulas that you just find on Google, you're going to be just stuck trying to copy other people's work instead of coming up with something that's unique and original and actually resonates and persuades. So it's a skill set. So you've got to invest into learning the skill set. So I'm going to share a few resources on that. So first, watch that video about how to create a messaging strategy. Read those books, consume those resources. That way you can just learn the underlying principles. And now I want to give you just a quick overview of copywriting in general. I know I've talked about this before, but copy, that is the written text of any marketing or advertising piece of content. This is, if you've ever heard of the show Mad Men, and you know about the big ad agencies that were blowing up at that time, it was all based around good copywriting. So some of the most influential marketing campaigns that were ever created were created by copywriters. That's pretty much almost always the case. You just don't know it. So things like the concept of a diamond is forever, that's something that was created by a copywriter, right? And the concept, which completely changed the entire jewelry industry, completely changed the entire wedding industry. Just that one simple thing, right? If you think about another phrase that completely revolutionized the real estate industry, which is the concept of paying your landlord's rent. That if you're renting, you're paying your landlord's mortgage as opposed to paying your own, right? That one simple piece of copy, that one idea, when introduced to people, made it where they were just disgusted with themselves to be renting instead of buying. And it had a tremendous impact, and to this day is an idea and a concept that people cannot shake from their brains, at least in America, because that idea was so persuasive and it's only a handful of words. And that's what the power of copywriting is. It's trying to communicate the most amount of information as possible, and to try to be as absolutely influential as possible in as few of words as possible, because for one, people just aren't going to read them, right? The other thing is, the fewer words you use, they have more power. It's like if you look at Apple, the way that they do marketing, they always have short, succinct, hard-hitting copy that says a lot while saying a little. And to do that, to be able to actually write like that is a skill that doesn't come naturally to most people, because what you'll find as you get started going down this rabbit hole and you start developing the skill of copywriting is that you're going to overwrite. In fact, I did this myself, and most up-and-coming copywriters, one of the things is that they're using all of the right persuasion techniques, but they're using too many persuasion techniques, or they're just trying to replicate these old sales letters of the past, but they're targeting an audience or an industry where that is not the style that they want, and that's not the type of content they consume. So as you develop a skill, you have to also develop the skill of editing, because that is really where great copy is formed. It's not in the initial rough draft that you put out there. It's when you start stripping everything away to the absolute most interesting, most persuasive copy that was in that original document, and only that. And that is how you can have powerful messaging in your ads, in your emails, on your website, everything that persuades people to buy and then make repeat purchases and have a great experience and then refer people to you. So, okay, with that out of the way, the Copywriting 101, let's talk about a few great resources. So again, please watch that other video about developing a messaging strategy. If you don't watch that and you don't consume those resources, at least read the book Influence, then it's just going to be a bigger learning curve trying to understand all of this, because you can follow step-by-step plans that someone gives you, but you will never actually be able to just sit down and write copy on your own without a formula, or to write copy about something that you aren't an expert on and have it actually be great because you don't understand the principles of what needs to be accomplished in that copy. So that out of the way, first book, one of the best books as far as like actual, practical step-by-step, just do what it says here. And this is, showing you how it's done, is a book called Cash for Tizing. Let's see, I think I have my camera set to, hold on. Let me set this to where you can actually read this. Let's see if I can do this while we're recording here. See if that worked. Okay, there we go. Not the most professional thing to do, right? But who cares? So Cash for Tizing, this book will show you lots of techniques, and really this is based on understanding what they call the Life Force 8. So these are the 8 things that we are biologically programmed, the 8 desires that we are biologically programmed with that drive our decisions. And so number 1 would be survival, enjoyment of life, and life extension. Number 2, enjoyment of food and beverages. Number 3, freedom from fear, pain, and danger. Number 4, sexual companionship. Number 5, comfortable living conditions. Number 6, to be superior, winning, keeping up with the Joneses. Number 7, care and protection of loved ones. And number 8, social approval. So you might have heard 1 or 2 things in there and you're like, well, that doesn't drive my decisions. Well, you might not think it does, but the overwhelming majority of decisions we make, as much as we try to tell ourselves that we do so logically, they're really just based on our subconscious and our own beliefs and perceptions and opinions and ideas that have been put in our head, either from ourselves or from other outside influences that are really influencing how we make a decision. So if you can write copy that intentionally speaks specifically to those desires, you are instantly going to stand out from the crowd where everyone else is just talking about features and just talking about specifications and a bunch of boring stuff that no one cares about, that they can just read really quickly. And you're actually delivering a message that hits them in their heart and their soul and in their feelings and on their own biases and their own opinions and beliefs. Those are the things that are going to convince them to buy. And so that's what this is really all about, is showing you how to write copy that targets those 8 desires. And it goes beyond that, but that's really the principle. And if you could just figure those things out, you would be able to write better ad copy and better email copy than 99% of marketers out there. So that's the first one. The next one is not just one specific book, but it's a specific person. So this is the No BS Marketing to the Affluent. This is a book by Dan Kennedy, who is one of the greatest marketers of all time, who actually just passed away, I think, in the last couple of years. But this guy, he was an absolute legend. A lot of the marketing gurus that are out there today really are just piggybacking off of his stuff. And I would say in my personal opinion, what I think he is best at, and where I think you should potentially study him, is if you are dealing with businesses that are targeting affluent people, or you're targeting conservative people. Those are the two, that's like his sweet spot where he just knows them better than anyone. And his style of marketing and the style of copy that he teaches you about really speaks very specifically to them. In fact, the principles, like the things I learned just from this book specifically, allowed me to sell millions of dollars in vacation real estate. So homes that people didn't have to have because they needed the home, right? So this is not just like a core survival desire. This is a nice to have desire. And these were affluent people we were targeting. A lot of how I came up with the strategy and the positioning and everything I did with the copy in our emails came from things that I learned specifically from this book. And this is part of a whole series of books. He has this whole no BS series. So no BS marketing to the affluent and no BS direct response marketing and different things like that. So I definitely recommend the direct response one as well. And some of the others are good. Okay, another copywriter to learn from here, specifically for emails or for someone who's writing email copy, is Ben Settle. Now he's got all kinds of different trainings and books out there. He's got, I don't know how many books. This right here is a book. I don't know if he still sells it, but it's a book that has all of his smaller books. So one thing about him is he's very interesting. He practices what he preaches to a fault. So his whole thing is he preaches daily email, but he also sends daily email. So he has a newsletter you can sign up to. You get his emails every single day. And the big thing with him that I would recommend, or one reason I would recommend studying him is a couple of reasons actually. One, being able to generate an unlimited amount of ideas for email marketing. He literally shows you that you can offer the same exact thing, and his offers are not really that exciting. I mean, they're just like copywriting training stuff. You can have the same offer and you can find a new way to talk about it every single nonstop. And then one of the things he sells is a paid newsletter, right? So it's like not only are you reading his newsletter for free, but then you would pay to get an even longer newsletter every month from him. And then he also has additional trainings. And so this is a book I would recommend picking up if it's still available because it has a lot of his books all in this one, compiled in this one book, so you don't have to buy them all separately. I think he's got some kind of offer out right now. So let's see here. There's 16 of his books in here, and I think he's got some kind of offer out right now where you can get all of his old stuff all together in one. But he is a genius at showing, giving so many different formulas, so many different practical step-by-step ways that you can generate new angles, new marketing angles for emails. So again, it's like the problem that we have as marketers is we run out of ways to talk about the same thing. We're selling the same thing or the same things for a long period of time, and there's a high demand for content nowadays. You have to put out a lot of content. So how do you keep finding new ways to talk about the same stuff? Study him, because he is a master at doing that, at just continuing to have a new angle. And a lot of them are, things that would seem obvious after you see what he says, but they were right in front of you all along and you just didn't notice. So he shows you how to use stories from your own personal life in content, shows you how to use things like popular music and movies, something that happened in the news recently, or just, going off of things that aren't pop culture references like that, but things that are more of an interesting story, but it can be completely made up even though the circumstances are real in the sense that that kind of thing happens all the time. So again, you have to just get into I'm not going to sit here and try to regurgitate everything he does, but those would be some of my most recommended resources to get started. So influence, I didn't show that here, but it's in that previous video I made called the messaging strategy, or how to create a messaging strategy, something like that. That one's a must read, absolute must read. And then I would definitely say, so cash for Tizing, just to kind of learn the basics of how to do great copywriting. If you cater towards more affluent or more conservative audiences, then definitely start getting into Dan Kennedy's stuff. And if you think your weakness is being able to come up with really interesting copy for a bunch, maybe you're an email marketer and you have a bunch of different clients, and it's how do I keep coming up with so many ideas for all these different products, and we're saying this, we're promoting the same products over and over. That's where Ben Settle comes in. Not to say that you can't learn a lot more from him, because he's also just a really, really great copywriter. And all these guys are legends in the space. So these are all people you don't want to be learning from someone who, just barely even knows what they're doing with copywriting, because it is a skill that takes a long time to refine, and it really pays off if you do. So that's it for this video. Another thing actually I want to say is to study brands. So once you learn how to do copywriting, now you can learn from copy anywhere. You don't have to go specifically to a copywriting guru to learn from them. But you need to understand what you're looking at. And once you do understand what you're looking at, now you can go subscribe to all the brands that have already, caught your attention. And now you can be able to understand why they caught your attention, why you'll be able to read their copy and realize, okay, you see what they're doing. You see, it's not just about what they say, but it's also the things that they don't say. Because again, with good copywriting, you don't want to say more than you need to. You only want to say just as much as you need to convince them to take the next step, whether it's clicking a link or adding to cart or whatever. You don't want to get ahead of yourself, and you don't want to do too much, because people just don't want to read a lot of copy, and they're just not going to read it. So your whole message, however much effort you put into it, it was for nothing. It was wasted. So again, study the brands that already resonate with you and start to figure out what they say, what they don't say, why they say it, how they're saying it, how it's being presented. So what is being shown around the copy. So how is the design enhancing the copy? And that again will help you become a much better copywriter. But you have to kind of learn the foundations before you can really get anything out of studying brands like that. So again, you don't need to spend a lot of money on this. It's just, you don't need to go buy some course or do any coaching or anything like that. Those things are great, and I've definitely invested in a lot of those things in my time. But really, it's just about learning the fundamentals and just practicing that skill set and continuing to study copy everywhere you see it. So okay, now the video is officially done. So I hope that was helpful, and I will see you in the next video.